Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen, Tom Wells, and Doctor of Thinkology, Alyx King here on this Friday, January 4th, 2019, 8 a.m. New York time, 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, 1 p.m. in London, and 12 midnight in Sydney, Australia. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us either live or to the recorded podcast here on today's first and most exciting episode of a Friday. We are in a very silly mood today. We have confirmed that during the lead up to the show. A lot of silly comments going back and forth here, so that's usually a good sign. That's a good sign that, you know, we're off to a good start and we're ready for anything. And we're also seeing people saying hello already in the group, so thank you for saying hello. We love the fact that you joined us here. This is sort of a Q&A, as usual. We like to do Friday morning Q&A, so if you have a question and you're listening to the live stream, by all means, just type it into the comments and we will address anything at all. I mean, because the law of attraction applies to everything in life.
Everything.
You know, so tying your shoelace, yes, that is where law of attraction applies. It's amazing.
Facts.
Actually, we were talking, Louise and I, last night about a quote that came through on... Do either of you guys get the Abraham Hicks daily quote emails?
Yeah.
No.
Tom gets them. Okay. Did you see the one on New Year's Day, Tom? It was one of the most... Usually, Abraham Hicks is very clear. You know, they just lay it out, and here it is, you know, point blank. The one on January 1st was like a Seth quote. It was just layered with all this stuff, and it just mind-boggled you as you were going along. So Louise and I were trying to unravel it last night. But basically, what it amounts to is this. Every time that you think a thought, that new thought essentially takes on its own identity and becomes a thinker. And so that new thought creates a new thought, and that also becomes a thinker. So it's like this endless number of entities being created with every single thought in creation. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just blew my mind a little.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't read it, but I was reading Seth last night, and they said something like that I was even going to mention in the program today, and I can't remember, but it was almost entirely that similar concept about how there's just so much more going on than we think. You know, that's constantly, everything is creating more and more and more. And it's just sort of like, we are much huger than we think we are. I wish I could find it, but maybe I will.
It's truly remarkable. I mean, I'm not even sure what to make of it, to be honest. For instance,
right? Because
we know that if we think a thought and we only think it for a few seconds, it doesn't create that momentum. So, is that a fully formed thought that actually becomes a thinker, or does it just kind of fizzle away? And I don't know the answer to that.
Works. Well, well, it's the same thing as, do you want to know about the fact that you're multiple souls that are existing in multiple realities all in the same instant, doing all kinds of things?
I can't today, guys. This is too much for my brain hurts in the morning.
My brain hurts.
But maybe that's the point, to get your brain to get out of the way.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Because if I think that every thought that I thought was another thinker, oh my God.
She's horrified.
This brings it back to the main point that I wanted to bring up in the show today.
Oh, what's that?
Which is that, well, it's this question, as I wrote it down, do you believe that the body and the mind together present a unified, self-regulating, self-healing, self-clearing system in which each problem contains its own solution if it's honestly faced? You know, in other words, are we designed in such a way that our feelings and our thoughts and our beliefs all work harmoniously to create our lives in a really marvelous way if we just work with it instead of fighting against it?
Okay.
And what do you think?
I think it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten, well, Louise and I both have gotten a very up close and personal kind of experience with that in terms of what's been going on with her medically. And I've told the story about what happened on Christmas. But just in general, she got a sonogram the other day, examining liver and such to make sure there was no damage that had come about because of what she'd been going through. And it turns out everything's fine, which is great. But, I mean, I was in the room there while they were doing it. And, of course, if you've ever seen a sonogram and they're moving the wand around, and it's almost like you can see protoplasm flying all over the screen, you know?
It's so cool to watch.
It's pretty crazy. It really is. But you're watching this thing, and then they zero in on something, and then they mark it. You know, they have their little tools there for marking out an area. Okay, this is something we want the doctor to look at, and this is something we want the doctor to look at, and so forth. And you look at the stuff that they're marking out, and it's all just shades of gray. You know, there's like, you can see like forms, so to speak, but it's not like seeing a drawing on a page or something like that.
Right.
And as they're drawing it, even though they're not moving the wand around, you can still see stuff that's moving around. And you get a sense of how it's all interacting. You can just feel how stuff is moving from one organ to the next, and there's all this blood flow going on. You can't even see the nervous system, but you can just tell it's going on in the background. And it's just like this big dance going on. And all of that goes on. What's that? I
was going to say, it's like where we have our own internal universe.
Yeah, exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah. And we have, I don't know how many millions of cells, hundreds of millions of cells in the body.
No. Over 100 trillion.
Well, whatever it is.
Ooh.
More than I can count. Let's put it that way. It's more than I can count.
More than you can conceive of.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't conceive of what a trillion is. But over 100 trillion cells, then each cell performs up to 6 trillion functions per second. Each cell. And a trillion, if you stack that in $100 bills, goes something like 65 miles into the sky, stacked with flat $100 bills. That's what 1 trillion is. So we can't not conceive of what the body is. And then you break down every cell into atoms, and you find that it's 99.999% space, each atom. And so all the body is this huge science fiction enterprise that we can't fathom at all.
No wonder you were telling me that you were my second officer on the Starship Enterprise.
Exactly. That's really what's going on here. And that's why we are so stuck in our old school thinking, is because we don't realize how we live in magic. We're actually all totally magical. Wow. And we have this old school thinking that makes us think we're limited in all these ways. Seth was saying in the stuff I was reading last night that we are literally creating our bodies every second by our own will. Our own thought is creating our bodies. And we have the ability, through our thought alone, to change anything in our body or our mind at any moment, if we would believe it, that we can do it. So it's amazing how powerful we are.
By the way, you got Nasha's attention when you talked about that stack of $1 bills. She says, "Wow, over 100 trillion." She says, "I want that kind of money." So you got her attention.
I think it's $100 bills.
Well, whatever. Who cares?
Don't we all? Don't we all?
They can be pennies for all I care. That high, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll take them all.
Yeah.
It's
I once
really
read another analogy for the upstate New Yorkers, and it was something like they said everywhere from something like New York City to Buffalo or something, you could line the entire throughway with $100 bills, and it would be a trillion. You know, like if you went all the way.
Easily.
I don't know. So they were saying I guess it was another probably 65-mile area or something.
Yeah.
But it was like fascinating when you think of what a trillion is, and yet, our government's spending that kind of money now all the time. It's like
it's scary.
You have companies worth that much. Yeah, it's fascinating. What's really.
Well, we can
anyway,
choose
getting back to our ability to create.
We can choose to be freaked out about it, or we can choose to say, "Well, that's cool," and move on and not be freaked out about it. It's
I
our
think
choice.
It's awesomely
entirely.
cool.
True.
So it depends on how we decide to look at it, really. And I say that as somebody who's an expert on freaking out about money supply. I'm not kidding. I wrote a book on the topic. Before I was
Yeah.
involved
Did
with the
ya?
law of attraction, yeah. Before I really learned anything about how the law of attraction worked, I wrote a book on the subject of money supply and how important it is to keep it level and steady. And it's an idea that still resonates inside me, but I've gotten to the point now where I pretty much abandoned all my political beliefs. I mean, they're all gone, which is a good thing, actually. I'm saying that as because it is a good thing. I'm no longer hampered by all that crap. But that's the one of the few that's kind of hung on and kind of stuck a little bit. And I have to remind myself every once in a while, you know what? I know all the theory is true. I know all of it is accurate. But in light of what we can do as deliberate creators, who cares? It doesn't make any difference anymore. None of that actually apply. None of those limits actually apply unless we choose to be default creators. And I don't choose to be a default creator. I choose to be a deliberate creator. And that's a big difference as far as I'm concerned. So who cares?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So let's see. We are Nasha's writing out $1 trillion. She loves the concept. But we don't really have any questions coming up yet. So let's see. What kind of questions can we come up with for each other? We talked about that, right, in the past, about how we should have a couple questions each ready in case we need to go
I'm
to
going to
them.
be honest. I forgot mine.
You forgot? Did the dog
I did not bring my assignment.
I've got 6 or 7.
Alex,
yeah, Tom's got me covered.
Alex, I got to ask you: did the dogs eat your homework?
My dogs ate my homework.
I told Alex I would do. I told Alex I would do hers for her. Alex called me up and asked me if I'd come up with something. I'm covering for you, Alex. Just shut up.
Thank you.
Don't laugh.
I can't not laugh.
So Alex is playing the role of the kid who never had their homework and always had an excuse, and Tom is playing the role of the person who always did the homework for the person who didn't have their homework ready. I love this. This is great.
The nerd.
The nerd, right? The nerd.
I was
have to
always
be a
too
nerd.
cool for school.
Well, then I know not to go to
Too
Alex.
cool?
I'll go to Tom instead. So what's the first question on the list, Tom?
Well, there was the one I just asked, but
Okay, then what's the second question on the list?
Okay. Well, do you believe that if you accept and carefully notice all of your negative emotions, that it'll always lead you back in a good way to the conscious thoughts and beliefs behind them, and you will then be led to heal whatever is going on inside yourself?
What do you mean notice? I mean, my problem wasn't noticing them. My problem was being inundated by them. Noticing was never an issue.
I have a hard time. Well, yeah, the negative ones, I guess I do notice. But
Yeah.
but I mean, I don't know. I don't always notice them because through law of attraction, practicing the way I got into law of attraction, I developed all these methods and systems whereby if a negative thing came up, I'd find a way to turn to a positive thing. And so instead of allowing the negative feeling to exist, I believed I had to have a very quick and powerful way to kind of deny it and say, oh yeah, there's that negative thing, but you know what? I can think about something positive, and I can turn this around with a better feeling story and a better feeling thought, and I can think of things that I appreciate, and I can make a focus wheel, and I can think, well, yeah, that's bad, but wouldn't it be nice if I'm going to actually win the lottery? Wouldn't it be nice if I'm actually going to have a really good day today? And then I would find all kinds of ways to not listen to anything negative that came up, because I would get so good at programming myself that the second some little negative thing showed its head, I would try to find a way to obliterate it with positive thoughts, and even talk myself into feeling better with positive feelings. But now I'm reading in Seth and really digging the fact through all my work with emotions that if you let those emotions exist, that they will lead you to your own healing, and you will be led to the beliefs that are behind why you create those negative feelings in yourself. And then you will be able to then change those beliefs, because you'll see, oh, yeah, I've been holding a belief that's been causing me to feel that negative sorrow or that negative anger or that we call them negative, and they're not even really negative. They're just feelings we're having.
Yeah.
They're just energy in our bodies, but we call it a negative thing because it doesn't feel good. But
one thing I learned pretty early on, and I mean, I made a joke about it a moment ago about being overwhelmed by feelings, by negative feelings and negative thoughts, and like I can't get away from them, so it's not about having to notice them. But it's also serious. It's true. Especially early on, I was really feeling overwhelmed by the number of negative thoughts going through my mind, and I wanted to get control of them. A large portion of my practice was just trying to cut down on it, cut down on the number, because it was far too many to handle. Far too many to handle. And I learned within a year or two after that from something I heard on Abraham's workshop tapes or something like that, that you really don't want to try to go after every negative thought that comes your way. Instead, you want to focus on how you feel and emphasize, on from moment to moment, what am I feeling right now? If what I'm feeling right now isn't feeling really good, what can I pivot and change to? And you named a few good processes for doing that, which is great. I find that the more that I focus on doing things that way, I end up with a lot less negative thoughts to have to even deal with. They just kind of disappear. They dissipate. But I think what you're talking about is where you've already done the winnowing process. You've kind of weeded out the huge number. You're down to a small number of negative thoughts that you're dealing with. Maybe one every hour, or once every day, or something like that. And it's a persistent one. It's one that just keeps coming back to haunt you. And for that kind of thought, I agree completely with what you're talking about. The idea of, I forget how you said it, but I would say becoming friends with a thought, appreciating it, loving it, learning from it, and getting it to the point where you can let go of it so that it doesn't continue to haunt you. And so if that's what you're talking about, I think I'd agree with you. But you have to tell me. You're the one who came up with the question.
Yeah, this has come out of my reading of Seth. And, of course, that's...
Well, Seth is just plain confusing and crazy anyway.
But I find Seth to be incredibly illuminating and bright and wise. And
there's no difference. I agree with you. It's exactly the same thing as being crazy.
There's a fine line.
It really is.
Right, Walt. Right. That's a good turn on someone that's here.
Yeah,
but that's what you do. That's what talk show hosts do.
That's right.
They control the show for their own egos. No, but here's the thing. All I'm saying
my ego feels so much better now. Thank you very much.
Well, you got a good one. I like your ego.
Oh, well, thank you.
Ego is not a bad thing. What Seth is saying is that just that there is the way the body and the mind are created. They're actually a very beautiful system, and there is no mistakes in the way everything's been created. And if we let ourselves feel whatever we're feeling, whether we call it negative or we call it positive, let ourselves have those feelings, they will automatically lead us to beliefs that lie behind the feeling. And once we can look at the belief, then we can decide if we want to keep that belief active or not. Mm-hmm. And so it's a natural system, and it'll even clear itself out if we just become aware of the whole thing. Just watch it as a process. And that's something that's sometimes hard to do. But if you just go, okay, I've been having this negative feeling. I'm just going to let myself feel it. Gee, where do I feel that in my body? Oh, it's a terrible stomach ache or whatever, but you feel it in your body, and then you watch and see what's the belief behind this. And I guess what Seth is saying, that belief will come to the surface, and you'll start to see, oh, I feel this way because I believe I'm not good enough, or I feel this way because I believe that I'm guilty for, not giving enough love, or whatever we think we're doing that is, we start to come to see the belief. And then what they're saying is that will then play itself out. And it's sort of the idea, does each problem contain a solution within it? So each so-called negative thing that happens to us throughout our day, does it contain a solution also? And what they're saying is it does, and it's a natural system, and we don't have to try so hard. We don't have to constantly be trying. But I guess when we're in the throes of feeling really bad, that's when we feel like we have to do something. We've got to interject some process into the middle of everything to change things. But they're saying we don't trust enough our relation of our body, of our mind, and to our mind, of our feelings to our thoughts.
I agree with that.
It's all
actually
a beautiful system.
Yeah, I agree with that. I find that to be true for myself a lot, and it's something I'm working on personally to try to improve my trust in myself. That's why I do. It's why I do the mirror exercises. It's why we do the podcast. It's why I do a lot of the processes that I like to do. And I actually want to tie in. There's a question that has already come out of the audience that I want to share that I think ties into this, because the question itself kind of contains sort of the angst that goes behind a lot of what people are constantly asking about in terms of how do I apply law of attraction in my life. And unfortunately, it scrolled out of sight before I could grab it, so I have to paraphrase it. But Suraj was asking the question, and the paraphrase of it is, how can I manifest something in 24 hours or less?
Wow.
Right? And that kind of gets to the root of what a lot of LOA questions are about. People are impatient. They don't want to have to wait real long. And in fact, Abraham talks even about how they aren't really fans of the idea of patience. So, we get reinforcement now saying, well, yeah, you shouldn't have to be impatient. You should be able to, or you shouldn't have to be patient. You should be able to just attract it right away. So let's see if we can address that. I'm not sure if Seth can give the answer. I know where Abraham would give the answer. Do you have any sense, Tom, of what Seth would say about that?
Well, they say similar to what Abraham says, which is that, our thoughts are creating our reality every second. So, yeah, we have an incredibly amount of power to change something. They even give an exercise that is supposed to be able to change things really instantly, but you have to believe it fully, Mm-hmm. And it's a really cool exercise. It's what you were kind of talking about. They say if you thought of the whole universe, all of space, you might say, as containing all your different souls, because they say each one of us has a multitude of souls, and you think of a planet or a galaxy or a star cluster or the sun or the moon or whatever as your souls out there, and then imagine a huge body in space that's containing all these galaxies and star clusters and suns and moons and everything. It says, and then imagine that coming into your body and just filling your body with the most brilliant white light that you can't even fathom. This immensely, that every inch of your body is nothing but radiating with this huge bright light. And then send that light to the thing that you want to change. So if you've got a problem in your body, if you've got something that's been going on with your mind, maybe for even a really long time, send that amazing white light to that. That it's not that what Seth is saying is that's not just an illusion. You can actually send the greater entity of who you are is a cosmic entity, and it's huge. And you can send this powerful energy will go to that thing to change it. I've been trying to work on things in my body with it this week. It's been very interesting because I've caused some things to change a lot inside my body. And I'm just trying to see if it's going to stay that way, So that's one way you can change things instantly. You can do that exercise. But they said you have to believe completely that you are connecting to that entity that is your larger oversoul, you might say, that larger thing of who you really are. You could say your source self, and that you're connecting to it, and then you're directing that source energy to your problem. And that problem can completely change because of that. So, a lot of this law of attraction stuff seems to come down to our ability to believe that we can actually change things instantly, and how quickly, because if it's not changing, to me, it's like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it's strong enough.
Well, plus also what Abraham teaches is really helpful in that particular context, because Abraham reminds us that if you want to know how well connected you are to your inner vault, as I like to refer to it, you do it by recognizing how good you feel. If you're feeling really, really good, your connection's there. Because that always worried me. Like, well, how do I know? How do I know when I'm connected?
Yeah.
You know, is there like a button that I can look at? Is there like a light that comes on? You are now connected to the system. No, there isn't. So.
Well, we're always connected, right? But
Well, and that's just it, yeah. But you're talking about like a really high level of focused connection, and so that was my question way back. Well, how do I know when? And Abraham answered that. If you're feeling really, really good, you're connected. Like, oh, good. Well, that I can handle that one. That's easy enough, you know. But yeah, I think also there's the other part of what they're saying, that the part that they're not saying, that Seth is not saying, but they're implying pretty heavily, is that if you are in any way resisting this connection, they're saying it in terms of being really, really connected, but if you turn around and say if you're resisting the connection, that's the Abraham concept of resistance right there. Resistance is what keeps stuff away. So,
Yep.
I mean, I've had experiences where I had literally instant manifestation on stuff that I had no resistance to at all. I mean, stuff just showed up, bang, like that. And it scared the hell out of me. But it did. It did show up. So clearly, stuff can show up, not just in 24 hours. I've had stuff show up in a split second. But,
me too.
You know, the other stuff that doesn't show up in a split second or in 24 hours is because I'm resisting it in some way. So that goes back, Tom, to what you were talking about earlier, about dealing with whatever negative emotions are coming our way so that we can appreciate them, love them, appreciate the message, clear them, and be better connected to who we are. That's one of the steps that you do, one of the processes that you do in order to gain that higher level of connectivity to our to my higher Walt. Right?
Yeah. What do you think, Alyx?
I feel the opposite of what you guys are saying. I mean, I see your point, but I also feel like patience gets you a long way. I'm a very patient person. So, and I also feel like the universe's timing comes into play. So it's like when the universe feels like you're ready for what you're looking for, it'll happen. Whether it be in 24 hours or a year.
Yeah, Abraham talks about that constantly. They say that everything comes down to one thing, and that is enjoy the journey no matter where you're at. And that if you're truly enjoying the journey, you'll start to realize the thing you're jonesing for so much that you think is going to make you happy is not necessarily where your happiness lies. You know, until you can live in every moment experiencing the joy, you're not going to have joyful outcomes in any area, no matter how much money you get by the end of the day or how much you solve a problem with your body by the end of the day because you willed it into being. You know, you can't really make anything last unless it's coming from your true transformation. And that, you know, they always talk about you can't stop a train going 80 miles in one direction and immediately have it go 80 miles an hour in the other direction, you know. You have to slow down the train. It's developed momentum over a long period of time and then reverse that direction and build up momentum again. So they're talking about both things. Yes, you can create things immediately, but you've got to be in that place where you're so receptive to your well-being, you might say, or to receiving it from the universe that it can happen that quickly. So I think it can, but you've got to be in that place of joy somehow.
That's the key right there. That what you just said is the key, because I think the problem with the concept of patience is that we don't always have a highly positive emotional association with patience. We often have a negative association with it. So I guess it really depends on what, if you're asking me, should I be patient? I guess I have to ask you is, how do you feel about being patient? You know, if you feel really, really good about being patient, well, okay. I don't even see that as being patient myself. To me, I think patient is more along, not really deeply negative, but it's not toward the higher end of the scale. And the reason I say that is, whenever I'm thinking about being patient, it's because I'm really impatient. You know, okay, well, I gotta be patient, you know, all right, I'll be patient. That doesn't feel good. That's like I'm just giving in to, oh, God, I have to give in to whatever this is, you know, where as opposed to being excited about what's coming along. That doesn't require, I mean, if you're excited about something, I don't think you have to be patient about it. You know, I am so patient that we're going to Disney World. No, that's just not the way it works.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we
Right.
there yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah.
This car
That
smells
was
funny.
me.
That's impatience, right?
So, yeah, I think I go with Abraham. I don't really think patience is a good idea. And I say that as somebody who was patient for a good portion of his life and didn't really get what he wanted. So I say, to hell with patience. Goodbye. I'm done with you.
Yeah. I'm wrestling with that right now in my life. And the thing I was reading about Seth last night, they were talking about the concept of aggressiveness. And they said aggressiveness is actually a very natural part of the natural world that we have labeled, we've associated it with violence. And it's really, if you look at aggression in another way, a flower opens with aggression. It's so exuberant to express life that if you watch a flower open in slow motion, it's pretty intense. It's going through some pretty powerful motions. And they said, the point that I was getting from it is that I need to be more open to the fact that I've developed this belief that I have to be patient and I can't be aggressive because aggression is wrong. Whereas in reality, not being aggressive keeps me from getting what I want a lot of times because I'm always waiting. I'm always like, oh, I don't want to, stir the waters too much, and I don't want to rock the boat too much, and I don't want to push too hard because I just want to be calm and mellow and all that. And it's like, that's not necessarily what really the way life wants me to be. Life needs me to be excited. Life needs me to be inspired. And
you got to voice what you want.
And you got to do what you want sometimes.
Yeah.
You can't always. I can't always be just waiting for things to show up. By my patience. I've got to sometimes go out and seize the day. As the
Carpe diem.
Carpe diem. Yeah.
Carpe diem. Yeah.
I knew there was somebody who said I was thinking of the Marines semper fi.
Semper Fi. Yeah.
Semper Fi,
Yeah.
which means always what? Always have faith or something. What does Semper Fi mean?
I don't know.
I think
know
semper
Marine.
in Latin means always. I'm pretty sure because I took Latin in high school.
I think it's
Anyway.
Is it always remember or something like that?
I'm sure Marines are really frustrated that we don't know the answer to that.
If you're a Marine, please write in. And
If you're a Marine,
know.
please tell us what is semper. Somebody could Google it in about 1 second.
I just did. It's actually always faithful.
Always faithful.
Ah.
Yeah, that's
Always
what I
faithful.
thought.
Yeah.
Always faithful.
We actually have a question, too. And again, I think it ties into what we're talking about. Nasha brought it to my attention. And Shruti is the one who's asking the question. She's asking about the difficulty involved in staying positive. And the point made that when we're in our comfort zone, and we're in kind of a low frequency, we have to raise our vibe. How do we do that? Especially if we're experiencing the difficulty of staying in that positive place.
I
So what
think
do you
do
think?
something you enjoy. Do something that makes you happy. Like I don't know, if you have a favorite place you like to eat, go eat there. Enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
That'll make you feel more positive because you're doing positive things for yourself. Be a little selfish.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be the fruit of your labor, by the way. It can be just something that you like. It can be a hobby. It can be an interest. It can be almost anything. I agree with you. It's following up doing something that you enjoy, and then when you've done something you enjoy, do something else you enjoy. Or interact with somebody you like to interact with. Or maybe it's a pet. Maybe it's a dog. Maybe in Alex's case, God forbid, it's a cat. I mean, maybe.
Do you have any pets, Alex?
I have 2 service dogs.
She certainly does.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just teasing her. But the fact is that anybody or anything that we interact with that makes us feel good helps us stay into the positive.
Yes.
I also think it's important to remember why we slip out of positive. And this ties back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago about that being inundated with negative thoughts. Whenever we are noticing that we're inundated with negative thoughts, it's a very rare person who can notice that and stay feeling really good. I'm so happy and all these terrible things are going through my mind, but I'm so happy. Like, no, just not the way it works. When you're in happy mode, you're not even thinking about the negative thoughts when you're truly in that happy mode. So
Yeah.
the moment that we're focusing on all the negative thoughts going by is the moment that our mood goes, it goes really, really low. So why is it that it's so hard to stay out there? It's because we're focusing on the negative thoughts.
Right.
That's exactly why.
When it comes to me and negative thoughts, I like to go with the method of, but why do you care? Like, I just remind myself,
that's
like,
nice.
if it's something simple, if it's something that's like deep seated in my like childhood, that's like resurfacing or whatever, that I have to, think on and do stuff about, work on that. But if it's something stupid like, oh, well, so-and-so didn't like a comment on my page or whatever, but why do you care? And cancel that feeling and keep it moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's true. I think it's good. And what's your answer, Tom, to Sruthi's question?
How do you stay positive when it's hard to stay positive? Is that
it? She's observing that staying positive is difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think for some of us, the first thing we have to do is admit the fact that we're feeling bad and see what that feels like and let it be okay, in that moment to have some of our bad feelings, like tell ourselves that, well, am I trying to run away from a feeling and that's why I keep thinking that I'm trapped by this negative thing that I'm calling negative? Or maybe I need to stop, sit down and feel what it is. What is it that I'm feeling? Close your eyes and say, what am I feeling? What's going on in my body? And when you get in touch with the feeling, then this process that I was talking about, that the body and mind work naturally to evolve you, and everything's constantly changing. An emotion is energy in motion. So if you feel the negative feeling that's behind it, and let yourself have that feeling, it will begin to change into something and heal itself. It will begin to show you a better feeling. They say the worst possible feeling you can have if you let yourself have it usually lasts about 15 to 20 seconds. Now, I know a person who feels depressed all the time. They're not going to agree with that. And but there is a lot to be said for the fact that one reason we stay in a negative place is because we're resisting, like you were saying, Walt, we're constantly resisting what's going on inside of us. But if we finally just accept the fact, I'm feeling really afraid or I'm feeling really angry, and let ourselves just feel the sensations in our body without a judgment about it. Lately I've been saying to myself, it's okay to feel, sad, or it's okay to feel hopeless. Something that's coming up inside me, and then I just sort of see where I'm led to next, because life will lead me to the resolution. Like every problem contains a solution within it. So I don't have to just put a Band-Aid on it of telling myself some better feeling story immediately. But it is ultimately good to learn the fact that, I constantly am telling myself that I'm running out of money, for example, if that's something I'm telling myself. Well, then if that's true, I could start to ask, is that true? Or maybe it is true, but I can quit putting it in the framework of disaster, and I can start saying, okay, I don't have all the money I want, but what's a thought that I want to have? Well, a thought I want to have is, I can create money. I can find a way.
Yeah.
So it's good to ask yourself, is there a better feeling thought that I could be having at this moment? And then practice that thought for a little bit. I could. That's what an affirmation is, right? It's like you might only start with a really simple affirmation, like, well, I could imagine I could make more money. I could imagine that more money could come to me, and then that could lead to another thought. In fact, I think I'm going to call up, so-and-so and ask them about that job or whatever,
Yeah, I think it is important to remember that when we find ourselves overwhelmed and unable to stay in a positive zone, that's where it's a good time to ask, what is it I'm feeling, just like you said. That's a good time to ask, why am I feeling all this negativity? What's going on? What's the sources? To the extent that I can identify it, what's the source of it? And then what's it going to take for me to let go of that?
Yeah.
Because that's what it
first
takes.
Make peace.
You have to make peace in some way. It's true. You have to just find some way to just say, okay, I can get past that now. I'm okay. I'm done.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we make it so bad to have a so-called negative feeling, but it's really just, it's literally what our system is putting in front of us for a reason. Like if I have a really bad feeling in my body, and now I'm really like tuning myself to asking, oh, what's going on now? Why is my ear aching? It's like, what is that? Or why do I have a stomach ache all of a sudden? I was feeling great before. Now I've got this stomach ache and it's getting worse. Like, what is this? What does it want me to know? And then I feel into it. And sometimes that doesn't immediately help or anything, but I don't know what else to do sometimes except just to feel it. And then maybe eventually go take something, that'll make that feeling go away maybe. But a lot of times those things will transform if we spend a little time with them.
And sometimes we don't even know what they are. I mean, that's part of it, too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're inundated, overwhelmed with a lot of negative thoughts, sometimes it's really just hard to tell, what's driving all this. So that's where the processes come in handy. That's where gratitude processes are great. Gratitude is like one of the quickest ways to start filtering out which stuff is really the important negative stuff and which stuff is just kind of hanging around annoying you like a gnat that you don't really have to pay much attention to.
Yeah.
You start looking for things, you start counting your blessings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you start like, that's why I recommend all my clients have an appreciation journal. I call it an appreciation journal. It's Abraham calls it something else, a journal of positive aspects. But you just start writing down. When I'm really bummed out, sometimes if I pick that thing up and I start writing things that I'm digging about my life, or about that day, like, well, I'm glad at least that I'm alive,
Right.
Or I'm glad that my breath keeps working in my body. Well, I'm glad that 99.999% of my body's working fine, working really well. So I have at least 100 trillion cells that are cooperating. Okay, that's a good thing. It's like the sun is the perfect distance from the earth to keep life going. That's a good thing, But, we can look for things like I appreciate the fact that I'm trying to improve my day. I appreciate the fact that every moment is a brand new opportunity. So I have a brand new start at this next moment, You can start thinking of the things that we feel good about. And then those other negative things, so-called negative things, they tend to dissipate.
They do. Pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing. That's the goal, right? To feel better,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very good. So what else do we have
our
on
default state? Our default state is really joy, I think,
Talk about that for a minute.
Well, yeah, when you're...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that, like I call my website youarejoy.com because I really believe that we are all, if we just relax and chill out, we'll eventually come to the realization that joy is a more powerful, dominant aspect of who we are than is all of our problems. And of course, when we're in our problems, it's very hard to believe that. I understand. And, sometimes I'm not even sure that joy is my default state because I've invested so much. I've invested a lot in believing, that I have problems, and that problems can be really big and that they can be overwhelming. And, but I think the more we just relax and accept the fact that there's a certain beauty about life that keeps on coming around, just like after an illness, you get an illness, your body right away goes into work to start to heal it. It starts to bring about whatever's necessary for you to get back to health. Mm-hmm. And then when we're in health, we take it for granted because our body just feels good all over. But really, that's when we get sick, we start realizing, oh my God, I would do anything just to have my health back.
Oh yeah.
And then you realize how amazing it is that our natural default state is actually pretty much feeling good, most of the time. And
interesting thing about feeling sick or feeling in pain is that it is an opportunity to either feel completely devastated or to be really focused, and it's entirely up to us which it's going to be. On those occasions where we can become really, really focused, we can do some tremendous growing. Because boy, oh boy, when you're feeling the pain or you're feeling the sickness and you want it to go away and you want to feel healthy again, nothing like facing that chronically and then having to change your attention away from it to, no, I'm not going to focus on that pain. No, I'm not going to focus on that lack of health. I'm going to focus on the health. I'm going to focus on feeling good. And boy, it tries you. It tests you. No, I'm going to drag you back here. No, you're not. I'm going to drag you over here. No, I'm going to drag you back. It's like this tennis match going on, right?
Or you can do the other method of saying, I'm going to really feel into this headache, and I'm going to just really be with it and accept it and love it and see what its message is for me. They say lots of people who get cancer are able to beat cancer because they finally befriend it. They finally decide that I'm not going to keep fighting this thing. I'm going to ask it what its message is for me. Why did I create cancer in my body? And of course, if I had it, I don't know how I would be about that and how much I would just get into the idea of fighting, but fighting is a weird thing, to fight against what's happening all the time. I don't know, I think there's a point of accepting and working with something and trusting that the universe has messages for me. And a lot of times things are happening because there's a message in it for me. If I would just accept it and be in the moment with it and make peace with it, that I would begin to understand that it's trying to tell me that I'm just pushing way too hard and I'm just way too afraid. And that's why, I just need to back off all this fear, or whatever the message is,
Okay, and Alyx, we stepped on Alyx a few times, so I want to make sure I give Alyx the chance to respond because she had a thought and then I pushed it away. So if you can remember what you were thinking, Alyx, what were you trying to get to?
I think I was thinking when Tom said that our default setting is joy, and I said, well, yeah, basically, because when we're first born, like all we did was laugh. So
hopefully
hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Not every baby.
Yeah,
not every baby. I did. I was a joyful.
Right
baby.
on. Well, you were a born comedian.
Yeah. But yeah, the majority of the time, and you can make a kid laugh doing nothing. So I fully believe that our default setting is joy.
I do too.
I think it is too.
That's the beautiful thing about babies and children.
And it's encouraging, I think, that's the default setting, because it means all we have to do is just get back to default. It's not like we have to work our way up to it.
Right.
Which is
and that's like the thing you were saying, what you're suggesting that people do who are in a negative place, if they do what a lot of kids do, the kid falls down and hurts its knee and it's crying like crazy and it's, my knee. And then the mother comes over and she kisses it and she holds him for 10 seconds and he runs away to play with his friends. It's like, it took 10 seconds,
exactly.
But 10 seconds before that, he was so freaked out that if we got that freaked out, we would think they would put us in a straitjacket and take us to the hospital. Look, this guy's, he's screaming in the middle of the department store,
Yeah.
But the little kid just gets over it. And that's a good example to us. And probably because his attention gets diverted, he gets the love he needs. So if we treat ourselves that way, we're freaking out. Give ourselves a whole bunch of love for our freak out. Accept it, kiss it, love it, hug it, whatever's freaking out. Then get on to the next thing. Maybe that's a key to getting out of negativity. Make peace with whatever you're going through. Love it, hug it, appreciate it, love yourself, and then go find something more fun to do, or more interesting to do, or go have a big piece of chocolate, unless you're fighting your weight problem.
And even that's not an excuse to leave chocolate alone.
Yeah,
there's no excuse. I can't. It's hard to have an excuse to not eat chocolate.
Well, plus it's like Abraham says, how much you eat actually has nothing to do with weight. It has to do with what you're thinking. And their example is the person who goes into the ice cream parlor. They could go into the ice cream parlor for 1,000 days and eat a tub of ice cream every single day. And if they go in with the right mindset, they won't put any weight on. But
that's right.
But if you go in with the wrong mindset, you just put on 600 pounds. It just depends on what your mindset is.
Yeah.
No,
change those mindsets, huh?
I said, that's how we're set up, because you walk in there and you're like, oh, the calories. And you're
Right. You're defeated before you
and
even
I'm
took
like,
your first
oh,
bite.
it's my cheat day, so I'm going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Talk about setting yourself up, you know? Ugh.
You know, exactly. Setting yourself up for failure. It's
Yep.
terrible.
It really is something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not
I've been
exactly
really experimenting.
it's not exactly
Pardon?
a policy to follow regularly. Yeah, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to have the mindset so I can just eat whatever I want. I wouldn't actually do it until you're in the mindset.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
But you want to be very, very
Yeah.
careful about when you do that one. Make sure you really are
Right.
enjoy.
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with seeing how much my mindset can affect what certain foods have on my body. You know, because I had built myself up to believe that so many foods have a certain effect on me because they seem to be so true that they did. But now, over the last number of months, I'm trying to bring certain foods back into my diet and see if I just think about it in a different way and think about my body in a different way, that maybe the food, it can be just fine. And I'm finding it just takes me relaxing my intensity about it all and quit believing so strongly that food's going to cause that reaction in my body, and just sort of back off that a little and try it once in a while and see maybe if I'm just more mellow about it, it won't have that reaction. And it often doesn't, you know. It's like I
It's
can eat a
funny
little.
you say that,
Uh-huh.
because I just went to the allergist yesterday because I feel like I'm having a lactose problem. But like, I also love cheese.
Mhm.
So I can tolerate cheese because I love it so much. But milk, I can't do it.
I thought you were a clam chowder fan.
I am a clam chowder fan. But
So
let me
you
tell
can
you,
eat it, right?
I eat the clams and a little bit of the
Chowder.
soup, but like
Yeah.
I don't like the potatoes. So I like pick through my clam
Oh.
chowder.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
But
Hey,
is
that's-
clam chowder the same without the milk? No. Right?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I can have small amounts of milk, but like
Yeah,
I
okay.
can't have a glass of milk.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would suggest that you consider that it has a whole lot to do with the fact of how much you love clam chowder, that you let yourself have some, and
Yeah.
you communicate to your body, hey, this is okay. This is okay.
That's how I feel like that's what's going on with the cheese. Like, because I
Uh-huh.
don't love cheese so much,
Sure.
I'm just like, no, my body's not gonna not accept it because I love it.
Right.
This is happening, whether we like it or not.
Right. You'll find a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that comes back to our thoughts, you know, and our beliefs. Our beliefs. I like how Seth says that behind everything is what you're believing. And of course, Abraham said a belief is just a thought repeated over and over. But they said behind everything is a belief. And if you don't examine your beliefs, you'll never know why you keep getting the same results in your life. But it all comes down to the fact that you have certain beliefs that you're reinforcing, and that belief is causing that thing to show up in your life over and over again, whether it's in your body, it's in your workplace, it's in your family, or it's in your personality. It's happening because you're reinforcing some belief about yourself and about life over and over again.
Suraj had a very whimsical comment. I'll put it that way. He says, if someone's talking about your diet or eating habits, eat them too. Okay.
Okay. That'll solve cannibalism solves everything. When in doubt, eat it out.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
Omnivore.
I'm gonna agree to disagree.
What I do want to say, though, is the comment that you were making, Tom, earlier on about how it's a good idea if we're dealing with an issue, something really negative, an illness, chronic pain, some kind of suffering situation like that, to embrace it and come to a point of acceptance on it. And I think there is a definite place for that. I want to make one suggestion and see what you think about it. I think it's a good idea to do that for the purpose of understanding why it is you're there and what message it has for you. Where I think that can go wrong is if we spend a lot of time on that.
Because then we reinforce it.
Then we reinforce it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there are going to be a lot of people who will hear that piece of advice and say, okay, I'm just going to spend like the next week and a half to 2 weeks focusing on why it is that I'm feeling this, which is not really what you intended, I don't think. But I can just see some people doing that,
It's individual. It's individual. I think each person should experiment with that if they're okay with that. Like if you're having a certain illness or a certain thought that keeps plaguing you, instead of always saying, how can I flee from this? Say, how can I be with this for a while and see if it has messages for me? So try it, just experiment with it. And if it seems horrible, don't do it, keep on trying to put another solution into the mix, but it's tricky, it's like if you have symptoms in your body and you constantly cover it over with some drug, you might never find out what your body's trying to tell you. But I'm not saying don't use the drug and don't not go to doctors if and don't not take drugs. But it's like, ask yourself, is there some message deeper here? Because that's where the work has to happen ultimately. These things have to come from within us. Mm-hmm. Things aren't going to change just because we apply a Band-Aid to it over and over again, but we don't find, why is this wound need a Band-Aid every day?
Yeah, right. This is true. Well, we have about 4 minutes left in the podcast. I want to make sure I get our messages in. So, if you're not yet a subscriber to the podcast, what are you waiting for? I mean, you can tell what kind of discussions we have. They're fun. They're exciting. They enlighten you. They help you understand stuff. And they're different every single day. I mean, literally, vastly different every single day.
Literally.
So, literally. Oh, yeah. Absolutely no doubt about it. So, become a subscriber. The instructions on how to do it are on the homepage of our website, loatoday.net. There are also links in most of the places where we post these episodes for people to take for public consumption. But if you can't find those links, just go to the homepage. And once you're a subscriber, and for all of our listeners, we ask you, please keep sharing and liking and commenting and just talking about the fact that you're listening to LOA Today, because it just helps a lot in terms of outreach. We did run into a situation with Nasha, and Nasha basically learned something for us, which is you don't want to share it with somebody who you are pretty sure is not going to be receptive to it. So do limit your sharing to people who you think are going to be receptive to it. But the ones who are receptive, they're waiting for you. They're waiting for you to share the information. So please do subscribe and please do share. And that's our ongoing message. Plus, we also want to express some love for people who are our live stream listeners, who share their comments and questions in the live streaming on Facebook. We really appreciate you guys. And we appreciate our podcast listeners as well. But those are our messages for the day. And I've got about 2.5 minutes left on the clock, so I'm going to come to each of you with a final closing thought. And Tom, I'm going to go to you first because you had like the most insightful Seth-like comments today. So what's one takeaway that you want to leave people with today?
I guess it would maybe be the one I started with, which is that trust your life. Trust the integration of your feelings and your mind, your thoughts, to lead you towards healing of anything and everything in your life. That there is a wonderful natural process at work that's the same thing that takes your body out of a disease eventually. You will, if you get a cold, you'll often get better, usually get better. And trust that whatever's going on, you will be led to your solutions if you just accept and pay attention and love yourself as deeply as you can. So that's one thing I'd like to say.
Okay, that's good. And then Alyx, what's your big takeaway? What's the one thing you want people to remember most of all from this very diverse conversation?
Most of all, I would say, cancel your negative feelings. Cancel.
So like canceling an order, sort of. Like, I know I ordered that, but no, I really don't want that. So just cancel it.
Yeah, just cancel it. Move on.
Move on.
Ask yourself, why do I really care? And then cancel it.
I think that's a good piece of advice. I like that. I think the one thing I want to leave people with, we didn't really touch on this a lot, but it plays a major role, I think, in the overall process we were describing. And that is to do what Wendy Dillard often called staying in your own lane. We have a tendency as human beings to want to solve other people's problems. And the fact is, there's really only one good time to help solve somebody else's problem, and that's when they ask you for help in solving their problem. If they haven't asked you for help, don't waste your time, don't waste your energy, and most of all, don't get yourself caught up in another negative trap because you're trying to solve the problem of somebody who doesn't want your help solving the problem. It just doesn't do you any good at all. Girl. Stay in your lane, that's it. So that's my piece of advice for today. So anyway, hey, this is great, guys. I hope you have a great weekend. I look forward to talking to each of you about a week from now. And Alex, I'll be talking to you again on Tuesday. But
Tuesday.
Tuesday it is. But yeah, have a great weekend, and hope you guys
you too, Walt.
Staying in that positive place and enjoying life, and following and having the journey.
Okay.
All right.
Lots of love.
Lots of love. And we appreciate our listeners as well, and we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.